Welcome to Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the fifth dimension.
Welcome to another podcast episode of Merkaba Chakras. I'm your host, Vaughn Galt, and today we discuss the evolving UFO and alien disclosure journey as it is revealed by different alien abductees, military whistleblowers, and many more guests who speak about their real life experience interacting with the UFO and alien races within Earth and outside of Earth. A requirement to engage with higher dimensional sentient beings of the cosmos is to be of fifth dimensional aura frequency. The 3D consciousness will not be sufficient to match the frequency of higher dimensional realities with beings resonating at higher consciousness. So, to explain what is being discovered, Journey to Truth podcast hosts Tyler Kiwala and Aaron Kuhn are here to discuss these revelations. So, with that, Tyler and Aaron, welcome to Merkaba Chakra.
Thank you for having us. We're glad to be here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we're excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy you guys accepted the invitation. I go through and I vet everybody who piques my interest, and I really love the angle that you guys are taking your podcast, and it's really getting more and more spiritual in nature. And so this falls right in line with advanced Buddhism, which is all we talk about here in Merkaba Chakras. So,
Nice.
so before we get into that juicy journey, please tell us how you got started with your Journey to Truth podcast, and also why the focus on UFO disclosures. So, Tyler, do you want to start?
Sure, I will start. We got started just because we both went through an awakening. We met at a conference. We realized we lived in the same hometown, which we didn't know. We had to find that out in Colorado at a conference, but we ended up meeting up for lunch back at home after that conference. Aaron had the idea for a podcast. I said, sure, why not? 2 weeks later, we recorded a phone call with my dad. It was our first episode. And 3 years later, here we are now. And it blossomed into something we would have never imagined at the time. We had no expectations, no anticipations for what it turned into. Why UFOs? Actually, it's not necessarily based around UFOs. We get that label a lot. We started off covering everything alternative: health, spirituality, UFOs, secret space programs, ETs, anything, to be quite honest. Anything and everything that went against the mainstream narrative, we were all for. We were all game, and we just wanted to break it down and discuss it as much as possible. And it's kind of just turned into something, this well-oiled machine that kind of runs itself, and we just kind of keep it running smoothly.
Nice. And Aaron, what about you? What brought you into this besides the synchronicity that brought you two together?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll just give a brief story of my awakening. I had my awakening in 2012. Before that, I grew up very Christian. And in 2012, I had my awakening where I just started questioning everything. I just kind of like this light bulb went off, and I just realized my beliefs were handed to me. They weren't my own. Everything about my paradigm was not my own. I had never gone on a self journey of truth. Like, it's funny because the name of the podcast fits so perfectly. And then I did, and then I just kind of like, I was just open to everything, and I wanted to know everything, like all the rabbit holes about what if aliens exist? What if there's life all over the universe? And what if, and so I started out kind of with the conspiracy / ET UFO kind of stuff. And then I started getting the spiritual knowledge as I went. and growing it spiritually as well. Even though I already had the spiritual foundation from my religion, I kind of like grew even more with it. And then spent 5 years in isolation. Like I had no one in my life at all that was on that wavelength at all. I had like my Christian friends and Christian family, and then I had my like atheist bandmates and some other friends that were, it was like one or the other, you know.
Oh, you play in a band. What instrument do you play? Are you the singer or
guitar?
Guitar, a bass?
Yeah. Electric guitar.
Electric. Oh, okay. Ooh.
Tyler too. Tyler used to play in bands as well.
We both used to play electric guitar in a band, so it's interesting.
But we didn't know each other back then. Yeah.
I think that's one of the episodes you guys have to do is maybe rock out a Journey to Truth, make a make a theme song or something.
Yeah, we still need to like jam. We like hardly even jam together at all. We still need to do that. But all that to say, 2017, so 5 years later, I started going to conferences. And then 2018, I met Tyler at the conference that he just mentioned in Colorado. And by then I had like already met some people in the community and kind of made some connections, even though I wasn't trying to network. It's just kind of what happened from me getting involved in the community. And so when we started the podcast, I had a list of like people that I was like, oh, I could totally get these people on, you know, as guests. And he had a few, and then we just messaged everyone. And I think everyone we messaged just agreed to do it because they knew us and they were excited about it. And it just kind of, like you said, it's just been like a well-oiled machine that just like, it's like we jumped into a river and the universe just like took us, and it's been going ever since. It's
right. Not once has it been amazing. Not once has it been forced.
Yeah. Zero forcing at all. It's almost like we fell into it.
Right.
Like we stumbled into this.
Well, I feel like that's how you know you're on the right path in a certain area of your life. In any area, you don't force it. It just kind of flows.
Yeah.
And you nailed it on the head too with what you said about you realize all your beliefs were handed to you and they weren't your own.
Yeah.
And that's basically the main message that the overall sums it up. I think that's exactly what people are realizing right now. Like, wait, everything I've been told, is that a lie? Is that real? And then you start asking yourself the questions like you did. So
how do I know what's truth and what's real? And
right.
Yeah.
That's why they call it a journey, or in Buddhism, they call it a sojourn.
Right.
And I love that you guys exhibit synchronicities and following those cues and synchronicities that the universe, that your spirit guides, angels, whatever you want to call those beings, are subtly handing to you. So it's like you fall into it, but it's almost like it's also a pre-life plan. And if you follow the plan that you charted for yourself, it would feel so seamless. Right. So I love that. Now, podcasting levels the playing field for sources of information in a variety of topics. So one of the most important things as a podcaster is to vet for content integrity. So how do you guys vet your guests?
Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
A lot of the people we already know, we followed, we listened to, we trust their information. So there's not really a vetting process.
So that was the vetting process.
Right.
You know, we've already been following them.
But then there's new people that reach out and have information, and there's these incredible stories they want to share. The vetting process is, it's about knowing yourself and knowing how to feel into what's true or what's not. And sometimes somebody's just sharing their story and you really there's no way to prove it one way or the other.
As long as there's not major red flags in the story or in something they say, or because that does happen from time to time where, there's certain things, it's like a major red flag, it's like, okay.
Yeah. There's definitely red flags, but for the most part, we like to just give somebody the benefit of the doubt, give them a stage,
a platform
to tell their story,
speak their truth and tell their story. And
but there's definitely
we'll check out like their stuff. Usually like somebody messages us, and if we've never heard of them or don't know who they are, but we like what they've said, like in their story or whatever, we'll if they have a YouTube channel or they have whatever, we'll go check it out. And then if we like that,
And we reach
then
out.
we'll be like, okay, yeah, you sound awesome. Let's do this.
And then there's always the phone call, the conversation prior, get to know the person.
That too.
Because sometimes they can make it sound as fancy as they want on paper, but when you talk to them, it's a different story. So it's different for everybody. And it's mainly about just knowing yourself enough to know what is true and what's not. And we both know collectively what we want to put out and who would be a good fit. So it's kind of it kind of runs itself in that way.
Yeah. There is definitely an art to podcasting, and vetting is an integral part, but the vetting process is not 100% perfect. So, sometimes it's just a matter of doing the best due diligence that you can, and then present the information without judgment and without
absolutely
picking a side, and just letting the audience decide for themselves what resonates. So that's always my best practice. But, there is a fine line between being gullible and open-minded. So what recommendations do both of you guys have for the audience in terms of measuring content integrity for the audience?
Well, like I said, know yourself. That's the biggest thing, because if you don't know who you are, if you haven't gone down that path of self-discovery, it's very easily for someone to manipulate you or wow you or enamor you with these bells and whistles with their information. But when you know yourself and you know what truth and deception feels like when you hear it, because your body reacts to it. So that's the feeling that you need to learn how to recognize within yourself. And once you know what that feels like, you can use that as a gauge for everything you listen to. Even when you read a book, you know what a truth feels like and what a lie feels like. Your body has a physical reaction. So if you know yourself, that's the best way to go out there. And when you're listening to anybody, and definitely don't give your power away.
You just said
don't give your power away.
Bing, bing, bing.
Bing, bing, bing.
The celebrity status, putting people on a pedestal. Like, don't do that. Don't worship somebody. Are
they trying to make themselves put themselves on the pedestal and like
listen
almost to be
me.
worshipped? And only listen to me, and making themselves, and like you can just, it's like narcissism.
Self-appointed experts. Stay away from the self-appointed experts.
They pretend like they have all the answers 100% of, they're never wrong, all the answers. There's some certain red flags. Only get your information from me. You'll see them demonizing and attacking other people in their field constantly, telling you not to follow certain people because they're bad. Just take my word for it, rather than just preaching discernment and letting people decide on their own who to follow and what to, they're actually telling you who to follow, who not to follow. That's a big red flag.
Red flags and all.
Discernment is a big life lesson. Discernment and boundaries is a big life lesson in Buddhism, and you guys just hit it right on the mark there. So I'm really glad to hear that you have that down.
And I think, thank you. And you said it too. It's a lesson. So even if you are following somebody who might end up being a shill or fraud, or maybe their information wasn't accurate, but they were good intention, and you realize, or maybe you've been duped, there's a lesson in that for everyone who was listening to that person, and that's their own path. So that's another reason why you don't sit here and tell somebody who and what to listen to, because they might need to listen to that person to learn a lesson that they came here to learn. And maybe that's the higher perspective or their higher self putting them on that path to learn that lesson. And maybe it's all in place for a reason. And we shouldn't be trying to control the narrative and steer people a certain direction, because that's exactly what the cabal does. And that's what we're trying to escape from.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And, and the thing about the extra sentient being narrative, the ET, UFO, all that kind of stuff is the putting them on a pedestal.
Right.
And, so you move from putting your guru or your teacher on a pedestal to putting them on a pedestal, or putting the person who has the information on a pedestal. And that is a lesson in and of itself of owning your own creation. And in Buddhism, the Buddhists will say a teacher teaches and lets go and learns from the student. And when the student can teach the teacher and the teacher learns something, that is a complete journey
Bingo.
for that aspect of the lesson. So
Right.
always look for those nuggets of gold. And then when you're well enough to teach it, because your teacher will not be around
Right.
teaching you. They don't want to teach you.
Yeah.
Okay, they really don't. They want to also enjoy their creation as well, and they want you to teach and share it and so forth. So
Right.
those are really good premises to begin with. So based on Buddhist folklores, okay, so I grew up with many monks and nuns who muse themselves with these Buddhist folklores. So here's what I know of the starseed toku folklore. And toku is a Buddhist word for basically any soul that has reincarnated from a previous quote unquote alien existence. Because Earth is not the only place, and this is not the only dimension. This is not the only reality. There's plenty within
Right.
samsara, within existence. So,
Right.
so we just wrap it all in as toku, but the common popular term is starseed. So the toku folklore goes like this. Okay, a long time ago, blue people, among other races, sought refuge on Earth for a variety of reasons: exploration, and also as political asylums from a galactic war. The most prominent spiritual civilization they created was Mu, or Lemuria. Natural catastrophes and a neighboring civilization who lost their spiritual connection warred with the Lemurians. Since then, humanity has many starts and stops due to lost wisdom, catastrophes, and warring tribes for resources out of greed and ego are humanity's evolutionary challenges. Now, these psyops continue today to keep humanity distracted and stay at lower dimensions of reality. Now, the solution that is proposed is a spiritual awakening to the realization that God is in all sentient beings within samsara, that all sentient beings have dominion over physical reality via our consciousness. And lastly, that all existence in all realms, dimensions, and parallel realities now and in the future are interconnected and affect one another, which tells us that samsara existence is a game for the soul's sojourn or journey. Also, our true home is in nirvana with God. So, regardless if your soul exists in nirvana or in existence of samsara or both, we all are directly connected to God due to the fact that we exist at all. So, therefore, it comes down to individual free will. How do you want to exist? So that's the folklore, that's the premise of ancient advanced Buddhism. So now, from all your disclosure interviews so far, which are fascinating, I'm very amused by them, uh,
Thank you.
can you please summarize what you've learned is going on with humanity and our reality? So, Tyler, you want to start? What did you learn so far?
I learned that nobody knows what they're doing. And that's actually, and
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, we're really, for the most part, people are going through the motions of life, but no one really knows why they're here or what they're doing or what their
The
purpose is.
purposes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where you start. And then once you start asking those questions, then that's when you go down that path of self-discovery, like I always talk about. But I don't know, Aaron, do you want to take this?
Yeah, what do you, because we're learning more and more every day.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Well,
what are you learning so far?
I also learned that anything is possible. Like
Yeah.
there's so much out there
Yeah.
that
The universe is so much, multiverse is so much bigger than most people on the planet realize, way more than we're taught. What we're taught is almost all a lie, in fact, from all the institutions. And it's all about there's no such thing as an external power outside of you. or an external savior outside of you. You are it. And we are all source. We are all source experiencing itself. God, you could, whatever term you want to use, the universe. And it's all about going on your own. Therefore, the only thing it could be about is going on your own journey of self-discovery and growth, and having experiences. And it's more like remembering. It's almost like we're in a state of forgetfulness in this third dimension where there's like this veil, and we deep down, our true self and our soul, and our higher self knows all this stuff, but our 3D conscious mind doesn't have access to that. So we're in this like false reality matrix where we think I'm this little me, like David Icke always talks about, this little me, and that's who you think you are, and that's not who you are at all. This is just a temporary experience that the real you is having. So it's about waking up ultimately to that and realizing you're infinitely powerful, really.
Right.
And you can
Right.
you can do and create whatever you want, outside of like hurting others. And that's where karma comes in, and where, because we're all one ultimately. So really you're just hurting yourself if you're hurting people, other people. And
you nailed it. And another thing I think that I've learned is that I had no idea of how many of the possibilities of multiple versions of yourself existing simultaneously in parallel realities, lifetimes, universes, whatever it may be. Because we have, like, if you have sessions or information comes through, downloads or whatever, you get information about yourself or things that you're doing on the astral plane in another life, a past life. But if time doesn't exist, everything's happening in the now, which means there would have to be multiple versions of yourself living out all of these lives, these parallel lives at the same time. And some people have memories of that and there's bleed through. And that's how they discovered that they may have been involved in some sort of program. And I started, at first I thought it was all just kind of black and white, this cookie cutter thing. And then at some point you just have to be like, wow, like literally anything is possible. We could be living so many different versions of ourselves on different planets and a parallel dimension, a reality right next to ours.
Yeah.
That's just slightly different. It's hard to wrap your mind around, but at the same time, I think you have to be open-minded to that concept.
Do you have, Tyler, do you have your own personal experience on reality shifting and changing in front of you from the last time you engaged with it?
Oh man, are you talking about like some sort of a Mandela effect?
Yeah.
Type of thing?
That's the common term for parallel realities right now. But
yeah, I mean, I have experienced that. There's one.
Can you tell me the one major one?
That was, I used to be in construction. I was working downtown St. Louis. We were building a hotel, turning an old shoe factory into a hotel. I would walk down the street to this little convenience shop every day during our break, and I would get a snack. That's just what I did. And I walked in one day and I noticed all these flags hanging up in the ceiling. And like, how did I never notice those before? I'm like, they must have just put them up. Then I looked closer and there was cobwebs all over them. They looked like they've been up there for years. And when I was checking out, I asked the guy, I was like, how long have these flags been here? He goes, I was wondering the same thing. He's like,
oh, and the guy worked there?
Yeah, the guy worked there.
He just noticed this?
Yeah, he just noticed it too. He goes, I was just thinking the same thing. And I said, so I'm not crazy. He goes, no, man. I looked up and I was like, when did they put those there? And I was like, and then
they've always been there.
Yeah, but they've always been there, supposedly. Yeah. It was the trippiest thing because it wasn't just me. This other stranger corroborated what I was experiencing, and he was experiencing the same thing, and he worked there. So what happened, what type of reality, dimensional shift, time anomaly, whatever it was, Mandela effect, something happened. Yeah,
I've heard it's because the timelines are merging together right now. So we're getting bleed through from parallel timelines where something's slightly different, and then it's changing things.
Right.
We experienced a different timeline, but now it's always been that way because it's a different timeline that because your consciousness like jumped into another version of yourself that exists in this planet that has those flags that's always been there. And everybody you talk to, except for that gentleman,
it will be like, no, it's always been like that.
Yeah, and
You
some
always
people
you
are
get that too.
some
You get
people
that?
from that timeline remember it always being there, and then you'll be
Yeah, and
and
you're
that's
like,
where the all the popular Mandela effects, like the
Yeah,
Berenstain, and there's a million of them.
yeah.
A whole bunch of people remember it differently, but then you'll talk to some people that remember it the way it's always been. Like my mom, for example, I talked to her about the Berenstain, and she says no, it's always been Stain.
No.
So she's from that timeline, and I'm like, no, I know for a fact. I had tons of those books as a kid. It was always EIN.
So let me ask you this about that. So that's your experience of knowing that you shifted to another physical version of reality. Was the Berenstain the common
That's
Mandela
just
effect?
one. There's like.
Do you have any personal
tons.
ones of your own, Aaron?
I don't. Not that I can think of. Not that I can remember.
So the common logo changes and all that kind of stuff.
Or none that I've at least been confident enough that it's not just my memory, So it could have been, but I wasn't like, I know for a fact, I was like, maybe I'm just.
Well, and that's the thing. Some of these things, like how close were we paying attention to them in the first place?
So you don't know what's going to change next. You don't know what's going to change next.
Yeah.
Have you exactly. Because we are connected to source, God, the universe within us and in and of each other, but we also are fractal expressions because there needs to be some differences because source wants to experience all aspects of itself. So there's going to be some individuality, which, because we have free will, makes us unique as a species. Have you ever tried to reverse engineer reality to try to figure out what are the elements that changes from one version to another?
No.
No.
Okay.
Have you ever thought like, what did I do recently that I changed my opinion, or I had some closure or healing, or thought differently about something that all of a sudden the next moment you exist, the elements in the reality physically change?
Right.
Have you ever thought about that?
I guess I have. I wouldn't coin it as reverse engineering reality, but I've definitely think about that stuff all the time because you start reacting differently in certain situations, or something might appear different. The trees look different, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely sat with that and thought about it, but I'm not long enough to give you a well-rounded answer.
Yeah. It is mind-blowing. That's why the best thing is just to experience the journey, because if you try to wrap your mind around all of it, it is convoluted. Everybody's essence, everybody's Merkaba aura field, their soul essence is unique and different, and we each have, just like DNA is separate. We have different fingerprints. We also have different energy signatures, and so in this lifetime, Aaron, you look like that. Tyler, you look like that, but your soul essence is a unique signature. So let's say we hypothetically make first contact and in another lifetime, and Aaron comes back as an alien being. It's the same soul in a different avatar. Will you recognize him, Tyler?
Probably. I think that happens all the time. Even when we meet people at conferences or wherever it is, out in public, wherever you go, you see somebody. There's always that one person that you meet where it's just you know them, and they know you, but you don't know how. There's the soul recognition that's always going to be there, and you don't recognize their physical body because you might have known them in a past life in a different avatar. I definitely think you would recognize the soul. Yeah.
I just had that happen, actually.
Really? What happened? Tell us about it. I love these stories. Tell us about it.
About a month and a half ago, I was at a conference in Mount Shasta, and I met a girl there who we both just had like an instant soul recognition. Like it was just like, it was powerful, and it was we were just like, we both just knew each other. It was like we had known each other for
lifetimes.
For like forever. And now we're romantically involved, and it's like it's
Oh, okay. Now, did you have like some
if it's
kind of
twin
glimpse of
flame.
what she looked like before, or what if it was a woman before or a man before? Didn't have any. Some people have glimpses. Did you get any kind of
Really?
glimpses?
No. It's pure. To me, it's pure just feeling. Like it's hard to describe other than feeling. Like it's like a deep, strong feeling of recognition and love there between both of, and we both had that. And it was just like weird. It was like magnets of like. Oh, I just knocked it.
That's all right.
It was like we were like two magnets at that conference.
Really? And there's
yeah.
all these people, but all you can see was each other.
Yeah, and we
in the
were
whole
just
room.
like, yeah, like we just were, so powerfully drawn to each other, and it's been like that ever since. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
That's cool. That is really, really cool. Now, have you, since you guys are on this journey, have you guys, I mean, you obviously recognize that you have existed before this incarnation in different life, with different people in your soul group, and you meet different people in your soul group as you go on. They like certain times they'll come into the picture of your story.
Right.
So, we recognize that we change avatars lifetime after lifetime. What about changing avatars from dimension to dimension, from galaxy to galaxy, into the alien stuff? So in your disclosure episodes, when you talk to these different guests, do you get information of them recognizing soul groups in different planet systems and different dimensions? I mean, how vast does this soul group extend? Have you gotten to those conversations yet?
Well, somewhat. As far as like different avatars, we hear about like anyone who claims that they're in a space program or something, they usually don't look like themselves here on Earth. Sometimes they might, but they're like in this different version of themselves that's slightly different. Sometimes it could even be the opposite sex. So, and people have those memories of even past lives that they know they were a male or a female or the opposite or whatever. So we have those conversations a lot. As far as the soul family thing goes, I think a lot of people who are in these programs are paired together because of their soul connection, and they work better together as a team that way. So then they're paired together, and these programs are this alternate reality, and then they have that recognition here. So when they meet each other, they're like, I remember you from this program or this mission or whatever the case it may be. And so that happens a lot. That definitely happens a lot. I don't know if that answers your question properly, but
it does. It does, Aaron.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I know soul groups tend to like incarnate together lifetime after lifetime, right. And I've heard a lot about that, where like your family in this life, who's ever your mother and your father, or your spouse or your partner or whatever, they could have had a different role. Like one could, been something else, but still something close to you in a past lives and or friends. And it's almost like there's these little soul groups that we're a part of, that it's like we all keep reincarnating over and over, helping each other learn lessons and grow. And
right. And it could go all the way back to Atlantean times. Like we might have, we probably farther, all did fight in the Orion Wars together.
Other races and planets, I'm sure, depending on how old of a soul you are,
Right. So like Aaron, you're Pleiadian in another lifetime, and Tyler, what were you? Orion or something, or
I mean,
Sirian or what?
All of the above. I mean,
I've been told Pleiadian and Arcturian, so I'm sure those are true, but I'm sure we've all been multiple things,
So let me ask. We are multiple. So let me ask you this. Because we're getting to advanced concepts of reincarnation here, which one of my favorite topics in Buddhism is reincarnation and pre-life planning. But so let's say you two have been different races, different species, and different galaxies, etc. And now you have reincarnated here on Earth at this time as humans, we would call starseeds or toku, advanced ancient alien souls reincarnating as humans for the human experience for whatever the intended purpose of the soul's journey is. How would you, what is your recommendation for like if, because there are people who are making connections with sentient beings through meditation, through astral travel, through, you know, a variety of different modalities. What's your recommendation for meeting these different versions of ourselves?
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a good one.
Because we talked earlier about not trying to amplify and put things on a pedestal because they're all the same, which
well,
is
first of all,
changing costumes.
Treat
Yeah.
everyone like it's you in another body or it's an equal. So don't put these ETs or anyone on a pedestal. And that's a problem that a lot of people have, I guess, or mistake they make is that some people are so anxious and they're so greedy for contact that when they get it, they never stop to question it. And they immediately put this external source, this being,
power away.
they give their,
Yeah.
they, even though they don't think they are,
Mhm.
they're still giving their power away because they're seeking answers from this person now instead of themselves, which is okay to do, but don't rely on that. And then make sure, like there's right now, we're in the age of deception, trickster energy. Make sure that know yourself enough to know when you contact somebody to ask the questions. Is this somebody of delight? Are they not? Make sure that they are who they say they are, because these groups can appear however they want. They can put the bells and whistles on and trick you into thinking there's somebody they're not and give you false information that now you're going to relay to your audience and muddy the waters and confuse the hell out of people. And I feel like that happens a lot more than we might think.
Yeah.
And I think that's why everything is so confusing. That's why everything's such a mess. That's why there's so much fighting. Nothing matches up because there's energies out there, entities out there working through people, giving them this information and might be true to them because they're trying to push an agenda. And it gets very confusing, but you just need to know whenever you're trying to communicate or make contact, make sure you're doing it responsibly and don't just haphazardly jump into it, get super excited because you heard a voice and then start sharing that information without ever questioning it, because you could be not doing yourself any favors.
Let's just say duality doesn't end on this planet and in 3D.
Absolutely.
And just what's the saying? Just because you're dead doesn't mean you're enlightened.
Right.
Just because you're an ET doesn't mean you're benevolent or enlightened.
Right.
There is both serves to self and serves to others beings other than even just humans, it's just
right.
Like so,
and you can't escape
all throughout the universe.
And you can't escape karma through death either.
No,
like there's no escaping.
Death is not a solution.
We didn't come here to escape to 5D because we were living those 5D lives and those versions of ourselves. We came here for the human experience, which, from my understanding, is so unique. There's things here that you can't do anywhere else. As
like what?
What like Max Spears calls pleasures of the flesh.
Oh yeah.
Are certain like foods and certain things. And just since I guess we have this free will, right? Or this illusion of free will sometimes, there are things here, they might be toxic and they might not be good for you at all, but they're experiences that people actually incarnate here to have and enjoy. And some of these elites, unfortunately, they thrive off of the pleasures of the flesh, which actually have nothing to do with their soul's evolution. They're here to essentially party. I mean, it's not actually a party, but they're here for selfish reasons. But there's things that you can do here that apparently you can't do. And a lot of other ETs, they claim that their planet might actually be what we consider boring because it's just so mundane. Like they might not have emotions, or some are fascinated with our ability to create art and music, and they can't do that. And we hear even certain whistleblowers and insiders talk about like some of our art and some of our music is actually bartered and traded off planet to other. It's very sought after and by other ET races. There's things that the human can do that even a more advanced being can't do. They might be more intelligent, more advanced, have these abilities, but there's something lacking with that creative and emotional dual that just.
According to Alex Collier, human beings are genetic royalty. We're considered genetic royalty throughout the universe because we have
in
so
amnesia.
many. Yes, we have. Some people say 22 different ET genetics, and the number varies, but it's a lot. And apparently, because of that, that's extremely unique in the universe to have that many different races genetics in one being, in one race. And because of that, we have, like, right now we're very dumbed down. Unfortunately, we have, what they call junk DNA. That's actually not junk at all. That's just deactivated. Once that gets activated, we're going to have abilities, we're going to start having, and many of us already do to a certain degree to different levels. But the potential we have within our DNA and our genetics is like insane, apparently. And that's one of the reasons why, we're special. And again, we're not better than any other races. No race is better. No one's better or worse. It's not about that, but there is uniqueness, and there is, things like that, we are unique and special in that way, and very coveted, and
they're also impressed. They're also impressed with our ability to adapt and even survive, because to them, they can't even come here because
they couldn't exist
because
here.
Our atmosphere is literally poisoned. The air is poisoned, the water is poisoned, the food is poisoned. Everywhere you turn, what we're putting in our body is actually it's considered poison. And the fact that we can adapt, and not only adapt but thrive and still live a life, is mind-blowing.
They're blown away.
They're blown away by that. And that's why our genetics are actually sought after also, because even though we've been poisoned, they don't even realize they're creating like the ultimate superhero, like that just can withstand anything.
We're extremely resilient.
Exactly.
Right. Well, I love those. I love those answers that you guys gave, because you guys touched on two essential elements in advanced Buddhism that not many people get quite yet. The thing is that there is a dual nature to existence. It needs to be up, down, right, left, all that kind of stuff. It's an aspect of how existence is created, samsara. And when Source blew out itself to experience itself in a multifaceted ways, there's the unity. You're all unified anyways, but there's, because you're within the consciousness of Source, but there's the uniformity, and then there's the individuality. So there has to exist an individual expression as well. And humans is an example of an individual expression. It has to exist. That always has been opposite. At the same time, because of individuality, we have what they call an ego. And because we are relatively I don't know if the word is young race, but in the cosmos, it's still being refined and perfected.
Primitive.
Balance. Balance. I'm not sure if it's the word primitive, but it's definitely involving experience for consciousness, for souls to experience. And balance is one of the things that is always taught in Buddhism. Balance, 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 balance. Because you're out of balance, and you can steer away from kind of where you need to be. But individuality and ego is very unique. The other thing is creativity. Because of individuality and that ego, if you have a balance and you have a good grasp of it, creativity is spirit express. That's what it is.
Yes.
It's spirit expressed. When you're creative, you're not thinking about anything. You're actually in a meditative state, and you're connecting to Source consciousness. Your brain waves go in gamma. You're very healing, transcendental, etc. All the wonderful words. But that's why when you're making music, or when you're podcasting, or when you're writing a book, when you're doing something that you love, and you're tapping into that eternal energy of Source, of spirit, and you're bringing spirit forward, and then you're expressing it in what you create. So creativity is spirit express. And I love the way you guys explain two fundamental aspects in Buddhism.
And
is
sometimes
to be creative and also be individual.
And sometimes I think that creativity, which is also very meditative, is actually can be more effective than meditation. like the meditation that we imagine in the lotus position and the perfect posture and all that stuff. There is a place for that, and calming your mind is crucial, but sometimes that doesn't work for everybody. And so if you pursue that passion or that creative art, that music, whatever it is, you're, like you said, you're connecting the source, and it's more meditative and more healing for you than these modalities that are just seem to get pushed on us in this realm of spirituality, right? It's kind of like the new age stuff. Like there's all these, it becomes like another religion if you don't, if you're not careful and if you don't know what you're doing. So what I'm trying to say is there's no right or wrong way to do any of this stuff. Like do what works for you. And just because somebody's out there preaching, you have to meditate every day or you're not going to ascend or whatever it is, that's bullshit. Like you can find your own way to meditate, and whether that's going in nature, building something, drawing a picture, writing a book, like you said, whatever it looks like, that could be far more effective for that individual than sitting down, because not everyone is wired the same. We literally have different genetics and different DNA in us. Just like a workout or a diet plan, not the same one doesn't work for everyone. It's literally comes down to the individual and what works for you. So don't be too hard on yourself because what your practice doesn't look like somebody else's.
Right. Yeah, I don't know exactly where that image necessarily comes from. I know, I mean, in Buddhism, obviously it's the lotus position meditation. That's just a basic example. But as you get further into it, you see monks and nuns and many meditators they stop doing that and then they go into their hobbies. They go into their writing, they go into their gardening, they go into their bonsai tree garden, and whatever, they go into their water paintings, they go into whatever else it is. And really the essence is this: whatever gets your brain waves to stop having that monkey mind, thinking about this, thinking about that, thinking about this, thinking about that. When you get into a state where you're not thinking about anything, and you completely shut down that ego, monkey mind brain, and it's all monkey business, monks, monkey business. So when you shut down all of that, then what you do is you tune into that energy field with the creator in us and everybody else. And it's just like a high frequency, and they measured it in science. Our brainwaves go into gamma. And gamma, from what we know so far, is the highest ones that humans can attain. And gamma is the frequency where energy healing happens. So, what they find, and what they're finding more in medical science, is that when they study energy healing modalities, different energy healing modalities, and I have a lot on the podcast here for people to investigate if you're looking for energy healing modality to help yourself in different ways. All of them, no matter the form, you can even just be drawing or playing music or sleeping is meditation for some people. It sends out this healing energy throughout the cosmos. And the one thing that's interesting about humans is that we have the ability to heal all of samsara just within our consciousness, because we can tune into source directly.
We don't understand how powerful we are, and the ripple effect that everything we do has. And it's so easy to sit here and talk about all this stuff, right? But like, are we actually applying it? That's what people have to make. That's the change, because we can talk about this every week, but if we're not applying it, then nothing's going to change, and then you're not even living in integrity. And sometimes I find myself doing that. I'll be preaching something or telling something that I know inside and out, but then I stop and like, where am I applying this in my life? And if I stop and think about it, then I can start to make that change. But sometimes just because we learned something doesn't mean that we're applying it. And I think people need to understand that.
Well, learning something and knowing something are two different things.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Applying it out of habit, because that's just who you are, is when you have gone from learning it to making it a part of you. Now you are a consistent expression of that knowing. Like, you know how to walk. You don't need to learn how to walk. You just get up and do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right.
so that's the knowing. When you get to that knowing, it's like, oh, well, you have mastered that part and you have evolved. So let me ask you this, because this when you get into higher sentient beings, you get into these conversations, these transcendental conversations. And so we have the life lessons of the human lives and our melodramas and all the things that distract us, and yada yada yada, and we know what we should be doing, but we have our human dramas. Then we have our world dramas. Okay, now when you add in higher sentient beings in higher dimensions, then you have the dramas of the galaxies, and then you have the dramas of the different dimensions, and it goes all the way up. The same solution goes all the way up to
Right.
source. So the solution to all of the mama dramas of all of existence is to connect to source. And
Yes.
that's it. Just this is it's a straight shot. It's simple. It's easy. There's nothing complicated. But no matter what lifetime we incarnate into whatever avatars, into whatever dimension of life lessons and complexities, and of course, if you get higher, you get more melodramas with technology, with more advanced, complicated melodramas with manipulation, deception, etc. It's all the same. It's the same. The Buddhists will say it's the same basic life lessons. You just find a more creative way to make it more complex.
Right.
Yeah.
Same solution. So it's always been the same solution. Just clear out the clouds. So, what we always say, we kind of have an inside joke that Earth is the United States of the galaxy, where alien refugee souls reincarnate into to make right what went wrong. So, so what are your thoughts when you interview these different disclosure guests and they're telling you all the melodramas of the universe? What are your thoughts on that? What's the solution you would give to them?
Well, that's a great question, because it's very true. Like, some people think that like all your problems just disappear in the next dimension or next density, which I definitely disagree with. And
make it easier.
It make it easier, but they don't disappear. And then you're also karmically tied. Like a lot of these ETs who are communicating with us or helping us, or groups, angels, whatever, they might be karmically tied to us on some level, to where they can't evolve unless we evolve or ascend, whatever. So they need us to do the work to get the point and finally like snap out of it so that they can move on. But there's even in the spiritual realm, in the spirit world, there's still drama. And when you hear about the space programs and ET, like it's never perfect. Actually, you never hear about this perfect scenario where everything is just smooth sailing. Like there's always some sort of turmoil. There's always that duality, right? It doesn't stop here, even though the goal is to get above duality. We hear about that everywhere. So I think that's actually really good to take note of, because so many people just think that everything's just going to disappear. All the problems are going to be magically gone as soon as we can like get disclosure, or as soon as the sun does something, or whatever the case might be. I just feel like it doesn't necessarily disappear, like you said, but it's good to be aware of it, so you don't go in and get your hopes up when you get there.
Yeah. That's a spiritual understanding of how the universe expands.
Right. The earth expands. Like, yeah.
Consciousness expands. Source God is always creating new and most excellent adventures for souls to incarnate into. It's always self-expressing itself in multiple ways that we can never fathom. And then we get to be the ones to experience all the different facets of its evolving and ever expanding creations. And as its creations grow and accelerate their Merkabas or their energy fields into higher and higher levels of existence, in order to graduate to the next level, you must help the one below you. It's the Bodhisattva journey. So even aliens are doing the Bodhisattva journey and learning the basic lessons of
Right.
unconditional love, acceptance, forgiveness, etc., etc. So let's
You-
talk about triggers, because your show triggers people like unbelievable ways. So,
Oh yeah.
um,
Oh yes.
and I don't have tolerance for negative comments, so I just delete them. I just like it takes too much energy for me to
we
sit
do
there and
that.
try to like try to comment and comment back, then comment back.
You're
So
feeding into it. You feed into it when you
Right.
engage.
yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes
So it's
that
not.
entity working through that person wants to get that rise out
They're
of you.
trying to bait you into yes.
It sucks you off your
it's-
path. It distracts you. But
Yeah,
I mean, we don't.
triggers take people off their bliss instantly,
Yes.
all the
Well,
time.
And there's lessons in
Yep.
triggers, and we don't
Mm.
just go like randomly deleting all these comments. Like if somebody makes a good point, but sometimes it's just straight up vulgar and nasty and,
And
just uncalled for.
Trolling and
Yeah.
then that's when you.
So we're
delete
just
it.
like, this
Yeah.
is completely unnecessary, and we just. But
But
go ahead.
sometimes it's just like you said. So triggers, and I've said this for a while. Like triggers show you where you need healing, is where you're wounded. You have trauma or wounds. Yeah. There you go. So that's where they come from. That's the source. It doesn't just happen. You don't just get triggered for no reason. That doesn't make any sense. There's a reason a certain thing triggers somebody to lash out and want to attack, and it's always a wound that they haven't healed. So your triggers are a blessing in disguise. Really.
Oh.
It's showing you it's your like, it's like an alarm system saying like, hey, look to see where this is coming from. There's something here you need to look at to heal.
Right.
But
Right.
if people aren't aware of that, which most people unfortunately aren't, they just lash out from the triggers, and they think that's just normal behavior, and they don't even question it. So what needs to happen is people need to be introspective and be like, why did I react that way? Why does this make me feel so angry or triggered when, and then they'll find the root cause of it and they can heal it. But yeah, a lot, like you said, a lot of our content triggers a lot of people.
Which content is the most triggering for people? Like your top 3 or top 5 topics that trigger the most rage in your audience. Like, what are they?
It's hard because every individual is at a different place in their journey. So even
there are different states of consciousness.
Different things trigger different people.
Even the most like benevolent, positive, high vibe episode that we've put out, we had people unsubscribe from us because of they were very unhappy with something that person said. And instead of dealing with the trigger, they just lash out and I'm unsubscribing from this channel. A
lot of it is religion and politics.
Yeah. And flat earth.
Yeah. Which is a religion. It's a religion. I'm sorry.
A religion is just a belief system.
Yeah.
Right.
So
yeah,
you can believe the sky is blue, and that's a religion. I mean, it's just a belief system.
But people tie their identities to their belief systems and their religion. So like for instance, like we've had a lot of like Christians start following us because of the more 3D conspiracy kind of stuff or whatever, and then we'll start talking about spiritual stuff or ETs or stuff that's outside of their box, or that their box teaches them is evil or demonic,
right?
And that triggers them, and then they'll lash out, oh, this is demonic, oh, this is bullshit or nonsense, and blah blah blah, and I know, and especially the Christian one, because I used to be that, so I completely understand the mindset, because I used to literally be that guy, and because of that, it really helps me understand how programming works and how belief systems work, where your whole identity, which is in your ego, so your false identity, the false you that you think is you, gets tied into this belief system, and that has to be the ultimate truth, because that's your whole foundation of what you think
and your identity, and not just your identity, your
it's fear-based.
Your life, your family, your surroundings, all depends on that belief system being true. So if something threatens that,
and you're terrified of that not being true, or something threatening that,
because it doesn't just threaten the individual, it threatens their entire reality and their entire paradigm,
their entire reality.
But there's some people who literally will can't get past the idea that all ETs are demons. Yeah. And they are so sure.
Or angels.
Yeah.
Right.
Or just ETs existing in general. People, no, you know, like, or must be evil if you're seeing ETs or UFOs or, you know,
Right.
interacting with them.
There's been things I was so certain about even a few years ago that I've had to have the humility to self-correct and admit that I was wrong about. And that's what people, I think everyone needs to take note of that and just be willing to be wrong.
Yes.
Because you're never going to grow if you think you already have all the answers.
Yeah. We got to give ourselves the ability to evolve.
Right.
And that means learning from the mistakes or evolving your understanding of something that you once thought maybe had a certain ceiling. So the next question I have revolving around identity, because these identities are being challenged by these different triggers in the topics that you guys discuss on your show, is that in Buddhism, the nirvana is basically a state where you release all of existence. You're done with the game. Whatever games you play, whether you're playing Star Wars or you're playing, you know, Working Mom, or you're playing, you know, the single guy looking for love, whatever games you're playing, or however magical advanced games you're playing, or you're playing in the game of a 12th dimensional being doing XXX and whatever it is. So whatever games you're playing within existence, at some point you're going to give up all of those games, all of the lessons that you have acquired, all the experience that you've acquired, turn it back to source. And when you get reintegrated with source, because you're just a expression outside that's been separated for a bit to experience the individual expression, and then you get reintegrated kind of back to the core. When you get reintegrated, you completely release all of your experiences, all your identities, and that is really challenging for a lot of people to go back to nirvana. It sounds really crazy to say, why wouldn't you want to reintegrate back with God? Well, because now you become the creator and as a part of the creator, and you release your ego and all that came with it, because your ego was a tool for the journey. So not a lot of people will return to source. They'll stay within some sort in a higher dimension.
Right.
Yeah.
Really quick before we address that, going back to the triggers, something Aaron always says, and I agree with strongly, is be careful not to mistake your triggers for intuition. And people do that a lot.
Oh yeah, that's a big one.
So they think that their intuition is telling them what you're saying isn't true, but it's really their trigger. Their trigger is telling them that this information doesn't match my belief system. So that is very, very crucial to understand, because I see that a lot. Like, no, my intuition tells me that this guy is completely wrong, even though it's not their intuition. Their belief is just threatened, and it's a trigger
because they're heavy emotions. But emotions aren't it. You gotta understand where the emotions are coming from. Is this coming from an unhealed place? Trigger
in this lifetime or a previous lifetime?
Yeah, or a past life thing could be too as well. Or is this emotion? Is this my intuition telling me, you know, this is a red flag? This is really good. And then
intuition and triggers have a different feeling, and that goes back to knowing yourself and knowing how to determine which is what. Going back to why some people may never achieve go back to source. So I have a theory, and just a lot of people don't agree with it. I first heard
why are we so addicted to the game? That's the question.
That's a good one. Yes.
That's a great question.
That's a good question.
I mean, why are we
let me ask you this.
That's all we know. That's all.
Yeah, is it all we know? Because we came from the source to play the game.
That's all we think we know, and it's scary. I don't care who you are. It's scary to imagine what your life experience would be like outside of that game, because we really don't understand. We have concepts of it, but have we been there, done that? Yes, but we don't have memory of that yet. It's there. So it's not that you're addicted. It's more of a fear-based thing. I think that you're just kind of scared of that unknown.
You don't know who you are. You're gaining, you're trying to be fulfilled from external things, I would say, because you're not connected to source. You're not connected to your true self. So you don't have that peace, and you're not satisfied. You constantly, you're like a crack addict. You constantly have to, have more and more and more external experiences and external things to be, but it's never enough.
Yeah.
It's almost like that's what addiction is. It's never enough. You got to constantly.
Everything is never enough. Yeah.
Yeah. And then your dopamine hits. You have to do more and more just to get the same, things.
Yeah.
I mean, it works in all levels of society. That's why everyone wants a bigger TV, a better car, this, that. Like it's never enough. It's never enough.
Yeah.
People chase money and material things. Yeah. Like, because you think you're going to be fulfilled from those things, and then you never are, but you think you're addicted to.
In my opinion, the truest fulfillment is shedding all that stuff, letting that stuff go, minimalizing everything you own, get rid of all that overhead shit that's just cluttering your consciousness, that stops you from being able to connect with yourself, because you have so much overhead on so much stuff on your mind. Some of these people have these jobs that they make a good living, and they have this huge house, they have 4 cars, they have a boat, they have a condo, they have a lake house, they have all of these things,
which they rarely spend all their time on any one of those properties.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
all exactly. These things that society tells someone else, that person has made it, that person is successful,
status symbol.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But there is no way you can live a healthy lifestyle owning all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's
and managing all of it,
and it'll never fulfill you either. Right. And that's what a lot of people get to that place, and they realize, like, I'm still not happy. Why am I still not happy?
What's the lesson there?
Because you think you are your false ego that is inflated. The ego loves to have all these things as a status symbol, and that it's all this false sense of importance and self-worth, but you really don't have a true sense of who you are and connection to source
and each one of those belongings is a distraction.
Yes, exactly.
So you, instead of having the space to even work on yourself or do any inner work, you have to go pay taxes on this vehicle, you have to go maintain
more problems,
this boat, you have to go
distractions,
cut the grass at this property, you have to constantly, your schedule is filled maintaining all of these belongings that you don't even need,
siphoning your energy.
Now, I'm not saying like owning a boat and going on a boat ride isn't amazing,
and we're not saying material things are bad in and of themselves by any means.
There's a balance, right?
Yeah, but but you have to realize, the most important thing is self-knowledge and self-connected to source, and because that's your true self, that's your soul, but when you're completely disconnected from your soul, is the way I like to look at it, and then all you have is your ego, and that's who you think you are, and that's living in fear, because the ego is terrified to not feel important, to not have things, to not every time feel secure in those ways.
Every time I get rid of something,
but none of that is who you are.
Every time I get rid of something and minimalize what I own, it feels good. It feels better than purchasing something new that I know I don't need. It feels good to clear out your space, because let's face it, we all own shit we don't need.
Yeah. You make room for something to appear that's better. Maybe you never thought of. Exactly. Yes. So I do quantum hypnosis as one of the modalities to help remote and in person. If I need to use that for as a modality for a client to kind of help unlock some hidden triggers or experiences that they're repeating in this life, or that they're working through in this lifetime. A lot of my clients are what you would call starseeds or toku. They've had different lifetimes in different dimensions, realities, etc., planets, etc. And then I talk to their alien collective through the client under hypnosis, and they completely change voice, change mannerism, whatever. Mm-hmm. And one of the things I've found that it's a common, because the Earth is the United States of refugee alien souls. So, but anyways, one of the things that I have I've been doing this since 2010, 2012, the quantum hypnosis. And the thing that I find consistently, because that's all I ever get, because in my current existence in the spirit world, I'm a pre-life planner. So I help souls pre-plan some of the basic things that they want to experience, kind of like a travel agent. And I always say, you don't have to learn the lessons through pain and suffering. You can learn the same lessons through joy and love, through fun experiences. It doesn't have to be the hard knocks all the time. You don't have to beat yourself up to learn the same lessons. But okay, we'll work with it. You have your options. You pick out what you want,
Right.
what some of the hard things that you have to experience, and then leave a lot of space for some creative problem solving along the way. But the thing that I find when I'm talking to these different alien collectives or alien family members of these different souls is just kind of like when you are a parent and you're disheartened by your child making a tough life lesson or going through a tough experience in learning. They have the same thing for us. And like, God, why they don't never learn? Why don't they ever learn? And so they very much like a big brother, a big sister. They feel a lot of disenchantment and a little bit of sadness and sorrow for how long it takes for us to learn our lessons as a species. And so it's the same lessons. It's the same basic lessons going all the way up. And when I talk to them, I pretty much reiterate, what's the lesson that you're learning in this?
Mm-hmm.
The lesson is unconditional love.
Right.
If you love someone, you're going to allow them the space with support on the sidelines, of course, but allow them the space to learn and grow through their process and through their experiences, no matter how hard they create for themselves to learn it that way. You can guide them, you can support them, you can help them along the way, but it's still their journey. And it's the same thing that you tell the kids. It's the same advice that you give to your best friends when they're going through tough life lessons. These alien collectives are learning the same thing on a galactic level. It's the same life lesson, and it's always a spiritual solution. And so they're always like, so hard. So
Right.
even at these higher dimensions, they're going through what in Buddhism calls the Bodhisattva journey. Okay, to stay behind, not go necessarily into nirvana, but stay behind in samsara, in some aspect of samsara, to help everyone level up, and then we all go
Right.
together. So, what do you say on people who are like, well, I like the UFO alien stuff and the spirituality stuff, but they shouldn't blend. Like, don't mix it together. What do you say to those people who don't like that you're mixing spirituality and the alien information together?
Sorry, but it's all connected. Like that's the reality.
Right.
It's all connected.
I'd say I tell them, I said, you'll get there. I mean, that because there's no way that they can't, they coexist whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And then that's, again, the reason someone has a problem with that is because it threatens something that they believe in.
Yeah.
And it's that.
I'd be like, have you read the Vedas with the vimanas and the flying? Like,
right.
Every ancient text basically has craft described in it and ETs described.
Yeah.
Like, clearly, it's like this is not just some like box that this is this one thing some people are into or whatever. It's like, no, this is a reality that's why it shows up everywhere. That's why it's just a reality.
And the main thing is you said, what would you tell them? Actually, you can't tell them because some people have to learn on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, you can plant
seeds.
You can plant a seed or present them with a concept or put out a podcast and let them find their way to that information. But it's actually not our job to wake someone up to that. It's their own journey to experience that, because if you hand somebody all the keys to the kingdom and all the answers, they're going to take it for granted, right? And they're not going to.
And they're going to learn the lesson.
They're not going to learn the lesson.
Yeah.
You have
it's going to be a repeat of Lemuria and Atlantis.
Right.
Yep.
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's just like you can drive around a rental car and you're not worried about beating it up because it's not your car. But as soon as it's your car, you're taking care of it because you earned it. You achieved it. You worked to get there. You worked to own that thing. And it's the same way with information and understanding. If you went through the turmoil, you went down that hard road to learn that lesson and figure out whatever it was that you needed to figure out, that means a lot more than somebody just sitting there trying to tell you that you're wrong. You have to, and then it just won't land. That's why some information that came through one of Dolores Cannon's sessions in one of her books, one of the ETs was like, she actually specifically asked if there was a better way, like why do humans always choose the hard road? And like, well, we've tried to show them, we've tried to help them and make it easy, but for some reason you humans like to learn the hard way. And that
stubborn,
right?
yeah.
Exactly. So we let you learn the hard way, and we don't interfere that way.
Yeah. The galaxy also learns the hard way sometimes too.
Right.
Mhm.
So everybody's learning the hard way in different levels.
Right.
Yes.
And I think sometimes that's the only way, especially at our level of consciousness. You're just like your parent can tell you growing up, don't do this, don't do this,
a million
times. And you've heard it, but you don't apply it until you're an adult 30 years later.
So
and
you
you're like,
do the thing and then you go, oh, now I really get why I shouldn't have done this.
And a parent telling you to do something a certain way is no different than, let's just say, an ET trying to give you the sign, like, hey, you're going down the wrong path. Hey, don't do this. Don't do this. Well, guess what? You're going to go do it and learn the hard way. And then it's going to make sense. But then it makes sense enough for you to pass that along now. If you didn't learn that lesson, you would have never passed that advice down to your offspring. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle. And unfortunately, coming here with amnesia, it seems like an never ending cycle, but not really, because the baseline is changing. I think more and more higher dimensional beings are beginning to incarnate. These kids now are coming here with memories and abilities that we didn't have. And it's changing. Yeah. It's tangible evidence that things are shifting, and it's only going to keep getting better, I think.
Right. The concept in Buddhism is you can incarnate with some family or some experience that matches your frequency. So if these higher dimensional kids are coming in and incarnating as humans, that means Earth is raising her frequency, so is humanity.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's just basic science, So I mean, I love these conversations. We can go on and on and on about them. But let me ask you this. So for me, I could see myself and my kids evolve to interview interdimensional beings about how they co-create with God, how they overcome spiritual challenges, how they refine their sixth senses, how they navigate the multiverse and time travel using consciousness technology, and on and on and on. So I can see myself doing this until basically I'm too old to podcast. Is this a lifelong interest for both of you?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I didn't know.
Absolutely.
I never thought we would be podcasting. I never thought this is something I would be doing. But
you're gonna be doing this on a spaceship.
I hope so.
Here's the thing.
That'd be amazing.
Like,
I hope so.
Here's the thing people don't understand. We get all this amazing feedback from people like, oh my God, you've helped me so much. You have no idea what your podcast has done for me. And we're like, really? Like, we're just sitting here having a conversation. But the other way around, they have no idea how much the podcast has helped us. And these we learn just as much from these conversations and from our guests as the audience does, if not more. And it's actually a bit more challenging when you do have to conduct these interviews and you're almost forced to apply some of this stuff in a way where some people don't have to, because they're just, living their lives. But there's a responsibility that comes with this. And it's a major, major lesson. And it's been this incredible healing journey. And it's not forced me, but I could speak for both of us. It's put us on this path to where now we're doing all of these things that we would have never done otherwise. And we're growing exponentially, and we have no plans on stopping. It's a passion. It's very satisfying. Doing this, it doesn't feel like work at all. Like, it's fun. No, I never dread, even when, this is how I know we're meant to do this. Even when I'm having the worst day and I don't feel like doing it, or something's going on, and I just pick myself up, do a clearing. We have the interview with the episode.
Once you get going,
you forget about anything you were worried about. If you were tired, you're not tired. Like, the energy that comes from having these high vibe, amazing conversations is so healing and it's so transformational. By the time you're done with the end of that episode, you're actually buzzing and you've turned your whole
Every
day
time.
around. Every
Like
time.
every time.
You've turned your whole day around now just by having this conversation. And it's like doing that every week, twice a week, is absolutely crucial to the journey, to our journey. And I don't have any plans on stopping. And wherever we're going on this planet, we're here for it. And let's discuss it and let's have these conversations.
Let's have a conversation about our evolving humanity.
Right.
Yeah. What about balance, guys? How do you balance jobs, girlfriends, work,
I mean,
podcasting, whatever?
I know what I do. If you want to take,
You can go first.
Yeah.
Here's what I notice, and nothing against any other influencer, podcast, or anything. It can be life consuming. Some people become this podcaster. They are so, I mean, they're doing like insane amount of episodes
every day,
every other day. And they're constantly on every social media platform posting I don't even, I see some of these people posting all day long. I'm like, well, okay, what does your life look like outside of the internet? So that's why we do one episode a week, because in between then, first of all, we're respecting ourselves. We're giving ourselves time to research our next guest, to be familiar with the topic at hand. At the same time, we get to go out in nature and live our lives and experience life the way it's meant to be experienced, not through a screen. So we've had so many opportunities to expand and grow and be on all these platforms, but that would require us to be on the screen, on the computer 2, 3, 4 times as much. It'd be this massive thing, and we don't want that. Like, there's got to be a balance. Like some of these people, I just want to say, like, you need to go outside. Like you can just see some of these people, and that's how they end up getting caught up in the drama, in the infighting, because there's no balance. Their life, their world exists in their computer, and they're not, if they were living a healthy lifestyle, I don't think you would be getting sucked into that drama, because you're doing things that are fulfilling you. And an unfulfilled person is only going to get there and argue with people, get online. So you have to find that balance, and don't overstress your schedule. That's what
Don't force yourself to do things you don't want to do. And like, if you don't want to make a video every day or whatever, but you think you have to for whatever, or you're trying to make it or get popular, which, I would say you need to question, why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, the intention might not be so integrous.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of reason why people do overwork themselves and get out of balance, is because their intention in the first place is off, and they need to go back to the drawing board, and be like, why am I
struggling?
Am I really being fulfilled by doing this, or doing this much? You got to listen to your internal, guidance system on it. And if you don't feel like, and, I don't know if you've heard of Phil Good. He's a guy in the community that I follow, and he just got a ton of wisdom. And he's always saying, if you don't feel like doing something, he's like, then don't do it. Right. There's no reason you have to force yourself to do it. You're not obligated to do, and if you feel like doing something, but it's outside of your normal routine, or for whatever reason you don't think it's something you're supposed to be doing, he's like, no, listen to your internal guidance system. And if that's what feels the best and most aligned to you in that moment, do that thing. And then just keep following that. And that's when you get in the flow state. And that's when you're connected to your soul and source. And that's when the magic happens in your life, when you follow that flow state. And then it's kind of like how this podcast happened. It's just it's we just flowed with it and not had
well, and don't, like I said earlier, don't overstress your schedule, because it's even it's always easy. We're always capable of putting out one episode a week. That's easy. We don't set the bar too high for ourselves. And plus, there's so many things out there for people to listen to anyway. Why would you overload the audience with all this content that they can't even keep up with?
Yeah, they got to process. It's like binge watching movies. You need to process the last episode a little bit. So
exactly. And
yeah.
so finding
Exactly.
that, like, just don't create an unnecessary schedule for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's you can, if you just set the bar low, and then one episode a week, and then when you're feeling good, you have the energy, all of a sudden you have time, hey, let's do an extra episode this week, why not? And then and you can put the proper energy into it. And that's why, like, this is not even a source of income for us, because we don't want to have to do the podcast to rely on making a living. This has got to remain a passion project. When you start doing this, when you feel, because you feel like you have to do it, it's lost everything that it was meant to be.
Which is like most people's 9-to-5 jobs.
Right.
It's like I have to do this to make money, and it's a job. And it's like, if it gets to that point, you're
just phoning it in, and you're not even
everything.
You're
just phoning, and you're not putting your heart into it. It's and that rubs off onto the content itself, and then people can feel that. And so it's all connected. It's all connected. And listen to your internal guidance system. You can tell when you're out of balance. You can tell, you can feel it, and it affects your life and affects people around you. So just be every day. And that's why meditation is so important, because it kind of helps you recalibrate and come back to yourself and have that sensitivity to to things.
Right. Just making sure, even if you're not meditating in the ideal fashion, just stopping to calm your mind. Stopping to calm your mind, whatever it is, taking
get
some
out in
deep
nature.
breaths.
Get in nature.
That's the key thing.
I love it. Well, is there a last message that you want for people for all people, a last message?
Don't forget to have fun.
I thought you were going to say subscribe.
Oh yeah, don't forget. Don't forget to subscribe.
That's his last message.
Well, that also, yeah,
that too.
Please go subscribe to our podcast.
Yes,
we don't even tell people to do that.
Have
if
fun.
you're compelled and you feel drawn to subscribe, go ahead. If not, it doesn't matter. But no, seriously, don't forget to have fun, because that some people start taking a spiritual journey so seriously, they forget what it means to even be happy or to have fun, because they think they're constantly behind. But really you're not. Like, just being present is exactly where you're supposed to be. Stop worrying about the future. That's the definition of anxiety. And just be grateful for the little things. Like, when I'm having going through a dark spot, a rough patch, I start becoming grateful for, like, having a bed and a cover to sleep under, and, like, being warm or not, whatever, little things like that I know a lot of people don't get to appreciate. So, and then that puts things back in their perspective, but mainly just don't forget to have fun.
Yeah, that's good. Gratitude does release the brainwaves into gamma, which is that meditative, connected energy healing frequency of source. So gratitude is a simple exercise to get into those brainwaves. Tyler and Aaron, I really much enjoyed the time that we had today. You can subscribe to their Journey to Truth podcast on YouTube and many other podcast sites on the internet by searching for Journey to Truth podcast. So with that, thank you kindly for listening to another enlightening conversation. Until next time, blessings.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.
Amazing.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Merkaba Chakras, where we talk Buddhism in the 5th dimension. For more information about today's guest, please go to the show description. For more information about Vaughn's metaphysical work, please go to merkabachakras.com. The views expressed today are for entertainment purposes and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or replace any medical or legal advice. Don't forget to subscribe for more interviews about the 5th dimension. Until we meet again, blessings.